You are listening to the Home Service Business Success Show. We have been accelerating the path of success for home service companies since 2011.
Whatever it is, it's going to change, it's going to evolve, it's going to make you better. Just embrace right now what's going on, regardless of what that is.
Just because you're the owner doesn't mean you got to run the company.
If you're not enjoying what you're doing, are you able to bring your best version? Are you able to bring your best self?
It doesn't have to be hard, but when it is hard, there's a lesson to be learned there.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Home Service Business Success. We're accelerating the path of your success, as you can actually see on the screen today. Super pumped, man. Here we are doing a live show from Acceleration Days, November 2024 at the time we're recording this.
Yeah.
We get to be, look at this. We're not
same screen. I can touch you.
We're the same screen. There's not a split. We're always sharing the same energy, but it's across the airways. And today we're together, brother. So great to be here with you, man.
Excited to be here as always, Kenny. When you and I get to sit down and have, where there's a camera on, there's a microphone on, you and I, when we have conversations, I feel like I get to know you more. And the more I get to know you, the more I appreciate you, the more I have respect for you, of the path of where you've come from, where our business is at. And of course, during this show, this is not about our business. This is about your business and the business that you're running. Yeah. And, you know, we just look to help elevate that for you and your organization. So before we just hopped on here, you just shared something with me about this event. What was that?
This is our 9th year. We did our first Acceleration Days in August of 2015. 2015. And let me assure you, the room wasn't anything like that room that our event team flew in early yesterday and got all set up and dialed for us. We're kicking off tonight with our vendor reception and registration and everything. But it's just when you focus on your business, when you focus on your team, when you focus on your culture, when you focus on your vision, that's the thing. And here's the deal. It's taken longer than I expected. It's been harder than I expected. And yet Christy and I we were flying out yesterday and looking at some old photos. And it's like, you know what? Every bit of that had to happen. And everything that's going to happen at this event has to happen. Yeah. It's the same is true in your business. You look back and go, damn, that was rough. That was brutal. That was exciting. That was amazing. Whatever it is, it's going to change. It's going to evolve. It's going to make you better. Just embrace right now what's going on, regardless of what that is.
Let's put a pin in Acceleration Days. I want to stop for a minute. I can't take the bait on that. Well, you shared something with me. Gosh, it's been several months back, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper and how valuable it's been. And I've been sharing this same lesson with everybody. Is it fair for me to assume that most contractors live with some type of regret of the things they wish they would have done or the things they wish they would not have done? And you said to me the simple statement, if only. Talk to them a little bit about that.
Yeah, the most two dangerous words put together in the English language to me are if only. And we live in this space of it's always not what I want it to be. And that's where all of our suffering in the human experience comes from, much less in business. If only I lost 3 more pounds. If only I had another $1 million in revenue. If only we did electrical in addition to plumbing and HVAC. If only I was a foot taller. If only, and we just continue down that path. And here's the thing to look at in you and your business right now. Regardless of where you are, the success that you've had, we see this as a crosscut of clients from that have joined our growth membership at maybe $500,000 in revenue to our enterprise members that are doing sometimes $500,000 in a day. And yet there's still if only I did 550 today, if only I did $1 million this year. Think about it. You've been doing it. We're taught the gap. Why? Because we were programmed As soon as I get out of third grade, I'm going to the other side at Taylor Elementary in Palisade, Colorado. When you go from third grade to fourth grade, you're on the other wing. That's where the shit's happening. It's on that wing.
We went way back in the files on the if onlys, right?
Hey, you never know what's going to come out of my brain, right? And then it goes to school, and then it goes to 16, get the driver's license, and then it goes to 21 when I can drink legally. And then right. And,
caveat legally.
And it goes through all these things. And the next thing you know, I'm a 54-year-old man with living the life that I put in play. And my brain will go, yeah, but if only acceleration days would have been this big 3 years. Come on, man. Where's it happening for you?
Yeah, you said something really powerful in that if only. And I see this a lot of times where folks talk about the if only as it comes to team members. I wish that they make a bad hire.
Yeah.
And I'm going to call a bad hire. I don't believe, Kenny, I know that when you make, quote, I'm going to call it for lack of words, a bad hire. Yeah. You make someone that you know is not a long-term team member. You make the decision. And then after the fact, your hindsight's always 20/20. Yes. You go back and be like, oh, I seen the red flag. I wished I would have. And immediately when that happens, the lessons that came with that experience, you no longer have.
They're gone. Absolutely. You skip all across it. So true.
And so we think of that lesson as painful. Mm-hmm. But I would just be curious when we go back. I'm not going to ask you what are your if only moves, but if you could say, what was some defining moments for you in business, just overall? And then I want to fast forward to where we're at today.
I think the biggest thing to me that changed the course of my business career because remember, until we launched Blue Collar Success Group, all I ever knew was being a contractor. I started by myself in a truck, 23 years old, no business being in business as a dead broke drain cleaner. That's how this whole thing started. And I was gifted. I started in 94. In 2000, I met Michael Gerber and I became an E-Myth consultant. And realizing that being good at the trade and profitability have nothing to do with each other. Being a good tradesperson, knowing the skill of the technical and translating, working with the hands, which is so powerful, so important, sometimes gets missed by companies when they're scaling. There's an absolute balance here. But I was gifted as a young contractor to realize that doesn't transfer to profitability. One of the best lessons that I ever learned, and I was very blessed that because I learned it early, I never had ego around being the best tradesperson. I had ego around being the best marketer, having the best financial statement, getting my numbers on time. That's where, and I try to rid myself of as much ego as possible now, but that was, oh, you're a great plumber. Cool. I'm a great business person. That was where I really wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not minimizing the trades because I know you're going to say, I might be the best electrician. You're the best electrician in this room.
In this room right now. There's nobody else in this room, so I can actually claim that title
that's
now.
That's 100% accurate.
Make change when some other electricians walk in. This is really funny you bring this up. I think it's important that we do talk a little bit about that because a lot of times the entrepreneur itch starts with most people start with them in a truck or them and a partner, or it starts kind of small. And I'm going to ask you for a moment, when you were in the truck and you were running calls, did you know back then that was a temporary moment in time for you? Or did you think like eventually something will happen? Or were you like creating this future in your mind of, I got to stop doing this?
Yes. 100% I knew it was temporary. What I didn't know is that it was going to be temporary and stay in this business. So meaning that about, 96. So 2 years into me being in the truck, I hadn't hired my first team member yet. I was on call 24/7 with the pager, the payphone, all the stuff, right? I hated it. Chris, I hated it. I hated my life.
Can you hold that thought? I'm going to speak to our audience right now. I hear this. I see it so much. I was just on the phone on Friday with somebody who started their business and they built the prison that they're living in.
Brick by brick with their own hands, I bet. I don't even know the conversation.
Yeah,
but that's what we
100%.
do.
And I just simply called his name and I said, you embarked on this journey of like, I'm going to go be a business owner. And now you've done it. And the challenge is you're a prisoner to this thing.
Yeah.
And so keep telling the story, because we want to be able to help those listeners that you've built this prison by accident.
Yeah.
Help them get out of the prison.
So the key is to utilize the pain. We do more, all the studies show you do more to get out of pain than you do to gain pleasure. So I was very blessed to be in enough pain that I had to change. So I thought that meant I've got to go find a cool business. I got to go find a fast food franchise. I got to go find something where other team members do everything for me, whatever that is, right? So I thought that had to be out of this business. I thought that had to be something else. I thought that had to be, mail order work, like all the different things I tried over the years. And so I was trying all these different things. Like I bought a diaper delivery service. Like I was just
diaper delivery service. Listen to you entrepreneurs out there, electricians, plumbers, and HVAC. What's the wildest, craziest business venture that you've done? I want you to drop it in the comments. Keep going.
By the way, I don't even have kids. What am I doing? So it wasn't to save on diapers, but so I was doing all these things, and there was a gentleman by the name of John Moss, owned all the Taco Bells in town, super successful. And at that time in my career, I was looking up the most successful people in Grand Junction. Linda Gilmore, top realtor. John Moss owned all the Taco Bells. Like the people that lived on the Redlands, that's who I want to talk to. And so I finally convinced him to go to lunch with me, and we went and sat down, and I said, I'm 2 years in. I hate what I do. I just want to go do something else. And I said, when you were 20, what was I then? 25, 27. And he said, here's what I'll tell you. When I was 27, I was running a Taco Bell for my parents, and it was the last thing in the world I ever wanted to do. And I would never tell that outside of this room. So I'm telling it on John's behalf.
Oh boy.
But the thing was that hit me was he said, however long it takes you to get out of this business, go deeper into it and be the absolute best you can be while you're there. If you're running a call, run the best call. If you're communicating with a customer, communicate at the highest level. And many of you are going, oh, duh, Kenny, big deal. No, nothing new here. Let that land for a minute. If you're in pain, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, are you able to bring your best version? Are you able to bring your best self? Because I wasn't at that time. I was getting up, putting a tick mark on the board going, here goes another crappy day. Let me go do this. And for some reason, after meeting with John, it was like, okay, so I had a 2-year plan. I'm going to get out of this thing. I'm not staying in it because I don't like it. I'm going to get out of this thing. So I'm going to start building some team. I'm going to start building some people around me. And then all of a sudden, it started to become more fun.
So hold on. I've heard this said in a session before that I was sitting in. What if the way is actually through the dragon?
Yes.
Right. And so facing the pain and addressing it for what it is, and stop enduring it. Just stop enduring the pain, because it's always going to be painful as long as I think it's painful. But if I recognize that pain can be a stimulus for a change development in my life, and a lot of people give up just simply because they don't feel like this is what I really wanted it to be. It's almost like they fall out of love with their business, and they were in love with it in the beginning.
100%.
It was exciting. It's just like a relationship, a new relationship. Everybody's excited about it. There's, going here, going on this date, new experiences. And then the rubber meets the road. You got to have business sense to be good at this.
Yeah.
And I've heard countless very successful entrepreneurs in our industry said, the moment that you focus on the business is the moment the business changes.
Period. It's so true. And the reality is, when you're using pain as a stimulus, to your point, it can be so incredibly powerful. But too often we mistake pain and suffering as the same thing. When I met John that day, I was suffering. When I left lunch that day, I realized I was in pain. So I took a different action. When you're suffering, you're accepting your circumstances. You think that's all it is. And so if only is always like, if only I wasn't doing this. If only I was in a different business, Chris.
If only I was in a different market.
If only
I'd have started earlier.
My gosh.
I mean,
market. Yeah. Don't even get me going on that, since
Yeah.
I only had 80,000 people. I'm like, if only I was in Denver, then I could be successful. And there's people in Denver going, if only I was in Grand Junction. It's a slow to change market. It's easy. Look at what Kenny's doing over there. He's not that smart. It's like, oh my God. And that's the thing. Wherever you are today, be in it. And if it is awesome, be every bit of that awesome and learn every lesson that you can. And if it's a little bit painful or you see the problem, law number 3 of the blue collar success laws, problems hold solutions. And Chris talked about it earlier, where if I just go in if only I didn't hire that team member, I'm going to miss the lesson. There was a universal reason that you went through that with that team member. Every single thing, every bit of pain. God bless the broken road, right? Rascal Flatts. Love that song. Like, that was one that Christy played to me early on. I digress. But the point is, there's pain that leads to where you are, and whatever that is. Now you have pain in different, you're always going to, it's part of the human experience. You need friction to grow. We need resistance. It's part of being human, in the brain, in the body. If I want to be strong, I've got to challenge my body. If I want to be strong, I've got to challenge my mind. But when those lessons come, it's like, let me push this back. If only that wouldn't have happened. And then you're missing the gold there.
And so going back to that, a lot of people want the result without going through the process. And sometimes the process is longer for others because they maybe don't learn the lesson. So they got to learn the lesson again and learn the lesson again. But the same lessons, I feel, show up in various forms. Example, let me just rewind it back. We hire somebody, great attitude, team member goes out, they start crushing it. The challenge is I go hire somebody else and think they'll just do the same thing. And the next person doesn't do that.
Yes.
And then I immediately go, there's no good people in the market. And I'm saying, hold on, wait, what did we do to train the first person? We hired a talented person, so they made it look easy. They made it feel easy. So there was really no lesson to learn there other than I got to have some training in my business. I got to make sure my team understands this is our delivery of process, whether it be a great revenue month, call volumes up, like all these little gifts that are given to us to make us feel like it's easy. And I want to just say this, it doesn't have to be hard, but when it is hard, there's a lesson to be learned there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And notice that there's a part of us that wants it to be hard, because then when I accomplish it, when I win, when I overcome, I get the adrenaline, I get the dopamine into the brain, I get the, I'm pretty badass, right?
My back was against the wall.
And here's the thing, look at this. I'm proud to be blue collar. Like when I was, I had this professional speaking career off, one of the other things that I kind of chased for a minute. My first book was a generalized 6 dimensions of change. And I travel with Les Brown, and many of you have already had heard that, but I just wanted to come back into this space, Chris. When I had a self-managing contracting business, so I'm going to go do big stage speaking. I want to change people's lives. I can travel. And then I was so blessed to get the clarity, and Garrett J. White was the one that said, dude, you know what you're doing in the space. Go back into the space. And I went, you know what? I'm proud to be blue collar. And that's where it's where I resonate. It's where I feel connected to this community, to you as an operator, regardless of size. And here's the thing, we work with blue collar companies that are part of $1 billion enterprises now. We work with blue collar is not an income level any longer. It's a mindset. It's a thinking. Yeah. And it doesn't mean like, look at all the cliches that we get stuck with. A good, honest, hard day's work. I don't want that. I'm going to have a good, honest day's work, and I'm going to do as little as I possibly can, all within unique ability. When I say that, like, I'm going to do as little as I possibly can. That's not what I'm here to do, right?
You mean example? Because I don't want anybody to misinterpret that as lazy.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, I don't want them to interpret that I'm better than that. Example,
Great
you're a
point.
small business. You're trying to work yourself out of running calls. And I'll say this to owners that are listening. Your unique ability might be running calls, and you need to hire somebody to run the business. And you can still create financial freedom. I've got a dear friend of mine up in Minneapolis, was a business owner. He spent the majority of his time in the field. He was a plumber.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking
Yeah.
about. They run a lot of the big sewer jobs, and like that stuff excited
That's his
him.
thing.
And he become independently wealthy from the field, and somebody else was running the business. And so I'm going to say something that may disrupt your mindset, and that's what I hope. Just because you're the owner doesn't mean you got to run the company.
At any level, if you're the technician and that's what you're really good at, we see it. Yeah. I mean, I've been on site with clients where walking in, you would never know the owner's in a uniform sitting in the training along with everybody else. And then there's a general manager.
Yep.
And different levels. I don't run this business. You run this business. And so I might own the company, but I'm not the best to do this. Let's be super clear. I am not the best operator of the organization that I happen to own all the stock to. So I better get out of the way and let somebody who is better skilled, better trained, and better executing at operating the business than I am. So yes, we had to work through some, I might do this or I might do that. I'm not best positioned there. So if you're in a truck, if you're a marketer, if you're a CPA, we have a lot of accountants that'll come into the trades and they kill it because they know they're going to focus on numbers and let somebody else be an operator.
Yeah.
So it goes back to your operator DNA, which is where you want to lean. So let me shift this back and ask you the same question, which we didn't talk about what we were going to talk about here today. I think it's important. Like, one of my biggest lessons was being skilled at the trade does not translate to business success in a nutshell. What about for you as you came up? We had parallel paths in very different ways. What's one of the biggest things that you look back over your almost 30 years now and go, that one landed, and that was a defining moment. That was kind of a shift.
I'm going to mention a few names of people that have been just absolutely game changing for me to know. And I'll go back to, it was in 2004, but the actual defining moment, Kenny, was January the 3rd, 2005. I remember it just like it was yesterday. When I walked into a building in Marietta, Georgia on Canton Highway, and the late, great Patrick Kennedy was touring me in his electrical service company. And I'll never forget, we walked into this room and there was two buildings. There was the operating building, and in this building, it was on two properties. There was an upstairs, and I'm going to tell this story. And for those that have visited the location, you'll visually go there, right? There was an upstairs where all the business office ran, dispatch, call taking, general manager, accounting, things like that were there. And then down in the below of that building was the actual operations where all the service electricians and things work. But then there was a separate building that was within walking distance in the same parking lot. And we walked into that training room. And along the wall, Kenny, there was all the electricians that worked there. And I'll never forget when Patrick said to me, now keep in mind, I'm a small town guy, right? I'm from a small town USA. And he pointed to the wall and he said, that guy right there, he's on pace to make $120,000 this year. It's 2005, by the way.
That's all the money in the world to you at that time.
I'd never made six figures before.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that looked like.
Sure.
I had no idea what six figures looks like. And then as he pointed, and he got down to like, this guy makes about 75. And I just immediately in my mind went to the averages.
Yeah.
And said, the middle is 100K. And I remember asking Patrick, I said, so you're telling me that if I'm average at this company, I'll make six figures? He said, I expect more of you.
I expect more of you.
This was the defining moment.
Hmm.
I had because I didn't know what was possible. I lowered my goal and just said, if I'm just average.
Yes.
And that's when I didn't know it then, but I come to the realization that I'm better than average. I am better than average, and I shouldn't accept average as the status quo for myself.
Right.
And for the first time in my life, and I'm speaking to many of you today that you already know what it is like to make six figures. If you're watching and listening and you're not making six figures, I'm telling you, when you make your first six figures, it's the hump on the roller coaster. And then it becomes, as a business owner, your first $100,000 a month, your first 200. And I go back and I remember I'm not average anymore. For our first, I'll never forget, Kenny, we had our first $250,000 a month in business as an owner, me and my partner. We celebrated by getting one of those big cakes, and we had a $250,000 bill on it. Like, because we thought, like, this is it. And here's what I realized. This is just what we do. And 250 turned to 3 turned to 355. Then next thing you know, it's 5. And next thing you know, we're doing $1 million months.
Yes.
And this was the lesson defining moment. Low goals, low results.
Low goals or low results. And think about that for you at home, where what happens if you set a bit of a stretch goal? What happens if you decide you don't want to be average? You want to play full out. You want to go to the next level, not because somebody else is there or somebody, whatever those are. And it's about you. If you set it out there and you don't accomplish it, then we have this whole, man, I missed, I suck. And we have this tendency to pull back. And the reality is, all that happened was you set something out there, you learned massive lessons in the meantime, and you're better tooled and you're better skilled. But I think as an industry, we're a little bit cautious now because of what we see in the marketplace. So for instance, I've worked with countless clients in countless markets where we go in and let's say there's 2 other big players in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Let's say there's 2 back. Let's go back to when I was doing ride-alongs, 20 million or so, 25, big company 10 years ago. That wasn't,
and by the way, let me say that we've been telling a lot of stories from the old days, and don't fall into the trap of the amateur and go, oh, that's old. Things aren't that way anymore. They're 100% the same way today. It's just on a different scale.
So good point. So let's bring it forward. Let's say,
what does that mean in today's world?
Let's say today there's $100 million company.
Now we're talking.
In my market. And I'm 5 million. And I say, Chris, I don't want to be 100 million. And you say, well, why wouldn't you? Because I see how those guys do business. Because I see what their technicians do. Because I hear through the grape, my supplier. How about when Ferguson tells you something, or when Nelson tells you something, or, when supplies like, oh, or fill in the blank, right? It's like, well, hang on. There's all these rumors about these people. And we've also had the situation where you hire somebody, and here's the thing. It has nothing to do with you. You can be 100 million operating with your exact how you want to. It's just a culture that happened. And so as we kind of think through this, one of the reasons that you and I launched this podcast was to help everybody just kind of true up the authenticity in themselves and there's nothing wrong with the big players that might do podcasts and do different things. That's all great. Anything that elevates the industry, I'm for it. Period. And what I'm really for is you leaning into who you are and not limiting yourself, where I did that as a young entrepreneur. I did that in different business. I did that when I launched Blue Collar Success Group, because I said, I've been in that organization. I've been in that organization. I've talked to Chris. He's been in other I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be that. And I give it to the lovely Christy for the time she turned to me, and we don't get forceful in our communication very often. And she turned to me and she said, "That's great. I'm sick of hearing what you don't want to be. What do you want to be in the Blue Collar Success Group? What do you want this thing to look like?" And things changed forever right then in that moment. And I believe that's when Chris became the president of this organization. I just hadn't met him yet.
So you believe in the divine unfolding, that if I follow the path that's set before me, I make the decisions that I make, it's going to lead me to some future outcome. And where that is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I do. I believe in that. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't take massive action in the meantime. Make no mistake about
or make bad decisions intentionally self-destruct, intentionally, right? And I don't want to, we probably ought to save that for maybe a season 2 topic of self-destruction, for lack of self-worth in many cases, confidence. I mean, I think there's so much we could unpackage. I think we probably go another hour on this topic for sure.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to what you just said, because you talked about this a lot in the 6 Dimensions of Change in your first book, where you talked about the belief system. And I can't teach it again, but if you've been to any of our academies, any of our teaching, any of our events, you've been around this blue collar community as the Blue Collar Success Group, you know that we teach belief systems. Mm-hmm. And this belief systems come straight from what Kenny teaches, that they come from the 3 Ps. Number 1, parents. Our parents teach us things. And in many cases, this is where I think many of us can help to kind of create some freedom. Our parents can teach us what we want, and they can teach us what we don't want, right?
100%.
Then we move into the second P,
which could be more powerful sometimes.
Yeah. If you're coming from a family where everything was gifted to you and not worked hard for, and you go work hard for it, you might appreciate it more.
Yes.
Reverse of that, you come from the poor side of the tracks, you go out and earn something. And so there is no right or wrong. This is not vanilla's good or vanilla's bad. It's just vanilla's vanilla, right? Chocolate is chocolate, strawberry, strawberry when it comes to ice cream. And then number 2 P you said is
peers.
The people you hang around. If you don't like how you see things, and when you say belief, Kenny, this is kind of how I look at it. Belief is the filter that goes on my ears and eyes.
Yes.
Because the brain only knows what the eyes and ears tell it, right? So how I see it or how I hear it is how my brain interprets. So if we change the filter, we change the belief, right?
100%.
So our people we're hanging around, if you look at your life today and you don't like it, it's a good chance that your belief systems led you there. Yeah. Maybe your peers are the wrong people. And then third one, and I'd like to spend a little time on this one.
Third is previous experience. So the things that we've had happen to us before go strongly into what my parents did, what my friends and my peer group is doing. And I've had that previous experience that forms a belief.
But belief systems cause us to not just feel a certain way, they cause us to operate a certain way. Would you agree with that?
100%.
If everything in my life has always been taken from me, all the good things have been taken from me, this could go to, you've had loved ones leave this life unexpectedly. You've had deep, intimate relationships that never work out. You've had partnerships in business. You've hired top performers. The list could go on and on, right?
100%.
And my belief system is everything good gets taken away from me. So why even go try?
Yes.
And I don't know who you are, but somebody needed to hear that, because they're down and out right now and they're feeling like, why even try?
Yes.
It's just going to get taken away from me. It's not going to be worth it. So I want some encouraging words. Do me a favor. Can you share some encouraging words of wisdom for that particular individual, where they're at in their life?
The reality is that, when we say you're right where you're meant to be, we don't discount the pain that you're in. We don't discount that it sucks. When it sucks, it sucks. And sometimes it sucks really bad. And the key though is to continue to get up and to go play full out. And the fact of the matter is, the previous experience belief, that only happens unconsciously if you allow it, if you don't enter the conversation. And as Chris was just sharing that, I get that. I've had that very strongly in my life from, my parents married 11 times between them. I've got 3 marriages in my young life of only 54, and I'm on my last one. But the fact is that I used to think that relationships were hard because mom and dad had 11 between them. I used to think that people that you care about left your life because my dad tapped out when I was 21 years old. When he was my age now is when he left this amazing planet. So I believed all those things. So I started making things hard for myself. Now, I'm not saying you're making things hard, because when I was making things hard for myself, Chris, you could not have convinced me that I wasn't.
Nope.
But I had a bottle in one hand and a joint in the other. And because I was trying to ease the pain, and until I realized that I am co-creating my life and I've got to feel the pain right now. If my elbow hurts, no amount of positive mantra, no amount of positive thinking is going to make my elbow not hurt. But when I wake up and go, damn, that thing hurts right now, and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to play full out and I'm going to do the very best that I can today, maybe it's just a little 1% better.
Yeah.
Little hinges swing big doors. You hear us talk about that a lot on this podcast because it's so true. Just little tiny shifts that take place.
Yeah.
And that's where, we think that we've got to have the $4 million comfort advisor walk through the door rather than implementing all of the thinking, the learning, and the tools from Sales Specialist Academy. That's what creates $4 million people. And you're like, if you're doing 4 million, you're robbing people, then 2.5 or whatever your numbers are. Don't get caught up in that. The point is that what if this is as hard as it's ever going to be? What if right now is making the journey that much better in the future? I'm so grateful for the trauma that I've had in my life. I'm so grateful for the pain, and I still have it. Don't get me wrong. Things aren't like I'm just skipping through the daisies. I've got physical pain. I've got mental challenges. I've got plenty of stuff still going on for Kenny Chapman. I don't have this stuff all figured out. I'm just doing the best I can. I study neuropsychology. I study the brain. I study Western, Eastern cultures, philosophies, religions. I want to know, because if I can help bring more well-being to the blue collar space, that's really my role. That's where I'm focused now. Blue Collar Success Group, we're going to teach you how to create whatever it is that you want. We have it at every level. You and the team just leading such an incredible space of our culture, our authenticity to meet you where you are. And I'm not here to sell blue collar. I'm passionate, and we're at one of our events.
Yeah.
So it's coming
Hard to
through.
not.
Regardless, what I want is this for you. I want you to lean into being proud to be blue collar, regardless of who you work with, regardless of the market you're in, regardless of the trade. If you got onto our podcast and you're in carpet cleaning or garage doors or whatever it is, just go kill it, man. Go kill it and have a blast in the meantime. And remember those words. If only. Notice when you say that. Notice when it comes in, whether those 2 words are exactly how you bring it in, or, well, Chris, I wish those could be a couple others, or that, but think about, if only this hadn't happened, if only this had happened. And the next thing you know, I'm missing what is happening. And that's the only thing I can do something about, is what is happening right now.
And all this started with the question of the component of regret. And there's been things that maybe you've wished you would have done that you didn't do. I want to shift as we kind of bring this to a close. I want to talk about so we talked about those that may be in a defeated moment in their life where they feel like, I just can't get any better. Things aren't going to happen. Let's go to the opposite spectrum of the if onlys through the eyes of the entrepreneur that's running the $100 million business, the $50 million business. They're printing cash and they're in pain as well.
Oh,
they're in pain because, I'm not going to jump on a hot topic, but it becomes so relevant because now there's a new way out. And the new way out is I'll sell to equity. That's what I'll do. And they think that solves the challenge of the prison that they've built, and the prison's in here and the prison's up here, because now I've wrapped my identity in, you're so-and-so that owns so-and-so business, right? And then that gives me validation and value that all my hard work and my accomplishments have made me who I am today, but I'm prisoner to that thing as well. And it goes back to personal fulfillment.
Yes.
Talk to our audience today, because so many successful people that are in prison that are looking for ways to get out of it. And the average person looks and goes, I want that. I want their life. Look at that. Look at all the fancy and look at all the bragging rights. But yet internally something just isn't right. And we're not having one of those counseling sessions, but could you just give our listeners a really quick dose of Kenny as it relates to that?
It reminds me of when Jim Carrey said several years back. He said, I wish everybody could become rich and famous so they know that's not the answer. And I think go back in your life and look back to when you thought, fill in the blank of rich and famous. When I make 60 grand, that was my first big one for me in my small market was 60. If I could just make 60. And then I jumped to that 6-figure thing. That 6-figure thing was so far out there. Chris talking about remembering when he did 250 a month. I remember my first 250 year was a big deal, which was 4 years into business before I did 250 in a year. So when we look at these different things, it's this, when I get that, then I'm going to be okay inside. Then I'm going to be validated. And that never goes away until we start leaning into, I am enough, and I stop seeking external validation. It's no secret that I personally got off of social media when I got sober, because I just wanted to go away for a minute and get to know me at a different level and get to know why I'm so worried about what everybody else is doing and why that creates so much pain for me. Because what Chris just said, I thought, well, they must have it figured out. And what I want you to think about today is these, and as I age, I think about cliche statements a lot more of how much truth there is just as they come up. And you look at the studies of the people that win the lottery, and not only are 97% of them broke in 5 years, most of them are in further debt and more pain, and sometimes suicide, depression rates than before they got the money, because we think the money is the answer. We think the market share is the answer. We think the next fill in the blank is the answer. And the sooner that you realize that that's not the answer. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking about a vow of poverty here. I really like income. I really like profitable months. I really like mental and physical and financial freedom. So I'm not talking about not going and building $100 million company. I'm talking about realizing that when you do whatever that is, if it's 100 million, it's not going to fill the void. And the challenge is what you said, Chris, get more clarity before you have some of these life-defining decisions and moments. We've consulted countless clients pre-sale. Some have sold, some have not sold. And not one or the other is the right answer other than what it is for the client. Our job is to come alongside them and help them uncover the best that they can and what that is. And I had somebody ask me a couple of weeks ago about a buddy of mine that operates in Denver. And he's like, why? He's still doing it? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's still going along. Well, hasn't he had a lawsuit before? Oh, yeah, absolutely. This was from a client who's in the middle of a lawsuit right now. Because guess what? When you're 100 million, have you driven down the highway and seen any of the billboards? What are most of the billboards on the highway? They're accident attorneys, right? I was just in Atlanta last weekend. It's like, God,
that market is
they're
full
everywhere.
of them.
But what's funny is I got home and I went, oh yeah, there's Raffi, there's St. James, they're
Everywhere.
they're all in the Phoenix market too. I just ignore them now, right? So, but my point is, everything comes with what we would call a consequence or a price or friction. There's friction at 5 million, Chris. There's friction at 500 million. because it's just where you're at and where you need to be. And I think that now, as we lean into where you are is so valuable right now. And when you stop that comparison mindset, yes, for years I said comparison mindset's the most dangerous mindset in the world. I've changed that. The more I've studied the brain, I realize that's exactly how the brain is meant to work. So now I say what you compare yourself to can be incredibly dangerous, which is why you and I constantly compare where blue collar is today to where it was last month, last quarter, last year, 9 years ago at this event. When we look at that comparison, I feel really good. If I look at where I thought it might be by now, oh my God, I suck. I can't believe it. Why? If only Chris and I would have met sooner. If only we both are super clear and we've had that conversation, it wouldn't be what it is.
Nope.
And we're not meant to be the biggest and the flashiest. And we don't have a rap star coming onto our stage. We got 3 badass coaches that are taking the stage that are going to help people grow their business. That's just who we are. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that entertainment value or entertainment factor. Go to all the events, go to ours, go to theirs, go to whatever. Everything's good for the industry, but we knew we had to have what we had to have, and we have to have what we have now in order to continue to move forward. So be easy with yourself. It's part of the process. Nobody has it figured out. This is a human experience. None of us know what we're doing. We're doing our best.
When you compare yourself to your past self, you can give yourself energy.
Yes.
When you compare yourself to your future self, you can rob energy.
Sucks it right out of you.
And if you want to take energy and happiness away, compare yourself to someone else. Because here's what you don't know.
Say that again. Say that again. That's really, really good.
When you compare yourself to your past self, it gives you energy. When you can look
I've
and
got
go,
progress, right?
and I can look back and go, look at my accomplishments.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can immediately go into the gap and go, look at all the dumb shit I did. Well, I do as well. And I'm like, all that did was prepare me not to do any more of that.
That's right.
Right. So I learned from that. Instead of letting it be a drain from me, I let it be the lesson that I needed to learn. But when I compare myself to my future self, I immediately get sucked of energy. Because I'm going to we're not there yet. We're not good enough. We're not me. And there's a difference between saying, here's where I'm at and here's where I want to go. And man, we're so excited and we're pumped. But don't immediately start thinking about all the things that need to happen to get there. Because when you do, the brain takes away the opportunity for you to enjoy the moment.
Yes.
Of what you've accomplished.
That's all we've got. Absolutely.
Then you go compare yourself to somebody else. And I've heard you say this before. And so I'm going to R&D this one. You can't compare yourself to others for this simple fact. It may be their chapter 23 and it might be your chapter 3. There's just simply no comparison.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't read all 23 chapters and gone through what that person's been through, it's really, really hard to compare yourself because you're just simply not the same. And I said this in a previous episode. The great part is you're unique in that there's not another one like you. And lean into, we talk a lot. I'll be done at this. I got no more thoughts that I want to spill out of my brain today. The only person you can really be is yourself.
Yes.
And the challenge is, we said this before. I love this quote. Bob Marley said, people are loved for being fake and hated for being real. And the challenge is, when you're real doesn't mean you have to be an asshole, by the way.
Right. It
doesn't mean that. Real just means I'm going to honor who I am. And that's cool. If you like what you like, that doesn't mean I got to like the exact same things. Just because you want to build a big, large, successful business and sell it, that doesn't mean that's my path. And this is where I want you, the individual, to figure out your journey. And remember, you won't know what you really like until you open up your eyes and ears for all possibilities and welcome things in that you may not have welcomed in before. But do that with some thought, judgment, and filters, right? In other words, don't just be like, oh, bringing a partner in is what everybody does. I should bring a partner in. I'm not saying do that, but I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying everything should be explored to figure out what your future looks like. Would you kind of bring us to a wrap in that?
Yeah, I think that, I think the key is what you said. That word is resonating with my current life situation. I'm just exploring. I'm just here to explore where I am today, where I believe that I'm headed, whatever actions that I take in that process. And we've talked a lot today about kind of big lessons that were turning points that got us here. My goal, my hope, my belief, my dream would be that you take something from our podcast series or anywhere for that matter, that gives you an opportunity to realize that, when I think back to, that was one of the first big lessons that I had. And then we talked about some fulfillment today, and I used the word well-being. The biggest thing that you can do for yourself is to stop worrying what other people think. And that's a cliche. It might be all over social media right now. I don't know. But what I do know is that when you realize that you are enough, you are not defined by a record month, and you're not defined by an awful month. You're enough regardless, because one of these days we're all going to leave the planet. And I'm super clear that from 54 to 146, which happens to be my plan, that I think I'm going to live to 146. 3 months after I'm gone, nobody's going to remember who Kenny Chapman was. Hopefully the Blue Collar Success Group will continue on and continue to do cool things, but it doesn't define me. It's where I show up and I play the game of life. But if it has a great event or it has a rough event, it doesn't define who I am any longer. And I would encourage you to, as you do that, you get to enjoy it so much more. You get the lesson better, so you get to enjoy the lesson when it sucks. And when it's winning, when you're having a great time, quote, winning, it feels really good. And the reality is, let it feel good to be you, and then go build that $100 million company or $5 million company that has a manager and you get to run it and take care of your team and build cool culture and have fun and community and family. And life's really amazing, man. Let it be that way.
You said something that sparked me, and I do want to share this, that I don't believe it's the experiences that define us. It's how we respond to each experience that defines who we are. I make a lot of money. How do I respond? I can cut everybody out of my life. I can start being an absolute jerk. I can start believing everything should be handed to me. Or I can say, man, I'm super grateful for that. So I go back to my humble beginnings often, Kenny, because here's the reality. I didn't deserve anything. I just took advantage of opportunities that were in front of me. I learned the life lessons. And I'm where I'm at today. And I'm one decision away from being somebody else. And I don't want to be somebody else.
Yes.
I want to be exactly who I am today. So thank you so much, Kenny, for this time and energy sharing today. Just, it's always good conversation. There just happens to be a camera on and just happens to be a microphone on us.
We're so grateful to be able to do this for you. Home Service Business Success. Keep tuning in. Make sure you mash the like, follow buttons, whatever platform that you're on. We're so grateful to play the game alongside you in whatever capacity that is. And brother, we're live face to face. We get
acceleration days,
actual energy together. So until we talk, ladies and gentlemen, make it a better than fantastic day, week, month. We'll see you real soon. Thanks, everybody.